Let's take a look at some charts, figures, and graphs on Ripple for Brave New Coin. So I figured a lot of people would appreciate my commentary on Ripple here, considering it's exploded in price. Not necessarily a video I want to do, but some analysis that's probably worth talking about. So in December last year, the elephant in the room, which is the thoughts of Ripple being a non-stop continuous ICO, caught the SEC's attention, and they charged Ripple with a big fine that's still ongoing. Now, Ripple has had class action lawsuits for years in the United States. Why is this important? Well, is it an unregistered security, or isn't it an unregistered security? Is it a continuous never-ending ICO, or isn't it a continuous never-ending ICO? That's not for me to decide. I'm not a lawyer. Okay, save yourself in the comments. For whatever reason, the Ripple maxis are like flat earther chemtrail people, and they just live in this alternative reality. The network isn't centralized. It is just nonstop enrichment for Ripple, the company, but we'll see what comes out of that. So since December 22nd, there were various delistings in the United States, and it's essentially thinly traded. Ripple is on exchanges that people have heard of, or exchanges that matter. Binance non-US, Huobi non-US, Bitfinex, FTX non-US, OKEx non-US. Kraken's probably one of the only US exchanges left on this list. All the rest of these, for the most part, don't have a US presence. Maybe Bitstamp. As a US citizen, you're allowed to trade Ripple. I'm not sure, but the point is, there are fewer and fewer exchanges to trade Ripple, which makes it easier to move the price. Price discovery, true price discoveries, is more volatile when there's fewer games in town to trade it. And most of these exchanges listed here are probably fake volume anyway. This is CoinGecko. That's not their fault, but for the most part, I'd focus on Binance, Bitfinex, and Bitstamp as far as volumes are concerned. It's also worth reading if you want to get deep in the weeds on Ripple here, which I'd imagine most people trading Ripple on a speculative basis aren't doing so currently, which is fine. That's not a slight against them. But for those of you who wish to be more informed, I would check out Ripple's most recent quarterly report, where they discuss their sales of Ripple and their views on the SEC action. They try to compare themselves with Ether and how Ether's a non-security and they should be a non-security. And they go through their various selling numbers, which is part of the problem. It's an interesting juxtaposition, saying that Ether's not a security, ETH is not a security, and then, oh, look at all the Ripple we're selling and getting enriched off of. It's a fun read. It's a nice comical representation of their viewpoints here. If you look at the total Ripple, the token, again, another trickery by the Ripple people. The token and the company, in their opinion, is two separate things, of course, whereas most people don't see it that way, let's be honest. So Ripple, the company, holds some Ripple, the token. Most of it's quote-unquote distributed or in circulating supply. And then another portion of it is an escrow, which $1 million a month goes in and out. Goes out. If it's not sold, it goes back in. Whatever's sold, Ripple gets the benefit of, the company. So again, this is the continuous ICO part, this escrow here. Definitely problematic, but we'll see what shakes out of it. Will the SEC lawsuit in the United States bring about lawsuits around the world? I don't know. Of course, the SEC people are all denying, or the SEC, the Ripple people are all saying that, this isn't an ICO, blah, 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 whatever, Brad, whatever. Here's the network topology, number of nodes. Most of these nodes, if you dig deep as far as who owns them, most of them are owned or subsidized by Ripple, the company. So that's also worth acknowledging. Both the nodes and the validators. It's hard to maybe distinguish the two from one another, but a lot of these are paid for by Ripple or supported by Ripple. So we can talk about decentralization or not decentralization. Again, I'm not going to make that case or conversation for you, but in my opinion, this is not a decentralized network. Transaction counts and average transaction values. So in general, for something that's been around as long as Ripple has, I would want to see continuous increases in transaction counts, some growth, right? multi-year growth, multi-month growth, especially with price where it is now. So to me, with transactions being flat over the past few years and price exploding recently, that is speculative nonsense more than anything. That's fine. I mean, it is what it is. If you're making money off it, great. But just be aware that there's really very little underlying on-chain fundamental activity to support that. Average transaction values are way up and NVT's way down. I'll show that in a second. But in general, you're just getting bigger transactions on Ripple. The escrow transactions are on-chain as well. So that's going to affect all of this stuff and move it more than organic transaction activity would. If we look at fees, they are less than a penny, way less than a penny, one 1/100th of a penny or something. So fees are super cheap, but when you have a spreadsheet, basically, you can make fees zero, like Ripple can, like Stellar can. If we look at NVT in the line here, active addresses in the fill, active addresses on a monthly basis have been rising, sort of. They've been rising since 2020. They've been falling over the past few weeks. So again, a bit of a bearish divergence when you look at the price versus on-chain activity. On-chain activity is declining, price is rising. Doesn't really make sense. NVT here is at a multi-year and or all-time low in the line. This says that on-chain activity relative to market cap has not priced in the increase in activity. A lot of this activity or decline in NVT was a response to the SEC action. So that's something to keep in mind as well. If we look at Ripple on Google Trends since 2017, big spike, obviously when Ripple hit Big Mac parity in late 2017. And ever since that SEC action enforcement, Google Trends have been sitting at multi-year highs, but not all-time highs, not really breaking out in a big way, but definitely increasing from where they were. So there's been a lot more articles and activity around what the heck's going on with Ripple from a legal standpoint of view, a lot of PR and stuff like that. And that's going to perk all this up as well. Just worth keeping in mind. It doesn't always represent searches from people trying to figure out what Ripple is, rather than the algorithm factoring in all these new news articles about Ripple. All right, that's enough about fundamentals of Ripple. Hopefully my bearishness on the protocol and the future of Ripple is succinct. Technicals, on the other hand, look fine. I mean, if you're in an alternate reality, again, you were just buying any of the lows you could after that announcement, December 22nd. There was a questionable exit pump here prior to that announcement. Very convenient that it broke multi-year highs right before that announcement. So all that happened, price got demolished, obliterated, a bunch of volume kicked in, bunch of selling volume, delistings, all that stuff influencing price here. And a few months later, we're just again at multi-year highs. So in a vacuum, this looks great. Obviously, I mean, it's at prices not seen since 2018. It's the second highest price Ripple USD has ever been. Longs on Bitfinex are an all-time high, so a bit of a long squeeze potential in the making there. VPVR says path of least resistance is up. There are yearly pivots at looks like $1, a few between $1 and $1.60, and then probably another R5 yearly pivot around $2. RSI is overbought, but not crazy. So all in all, for me, I'm never touching this anymore anyway. But on the technicals, buying a pullback is reasonable. Buying the R1 yearly pivot again around 70 cents is where I'd want to be in a vacuum trading this. I just want to show this really old pitchfork as another way to use pitchforks. So Ripple was stuck in this multi-year pitchfork for 2-3 years, something like that. And it flirted with breaking above it. EOS is similar. Zcash is similar, where it's just in this bearish trend for years and years and years. Then it finally breaks out. We can look at, I didn't even mention the 50 and the 200 cross here, but the 50 and the 200 cross was bullish since mid-2020. If we look at the pitchfork, it was out of the pitchfork in mid-2020 pretty succinctly. So, this is a way to gauge bullishness in a market that's been nonstop bearish for many years. And ever since then, it's been up and away, regardless of reality, right? Fundamentals don't care. It doesn't matter. And the 50 and the 200 is far below price at this point. So it's done quite well on a trend basis with technicals. And if we look at the 3-day cloud, it was below the cloud basically since the all-time high, and finally got above the cloud in late 2020. So, if you're bearish or bullish and looking for a trend reversal, using these extremely high time frame trend metrics are your friend when you look at a project that you don't like or you don't think is worth anything. You can say, okay, well, what's going on with the technicals, right? It's pretty obvious that this thing was bullish regardless of my personal feelings with it. Ripple-BTC has continued to pretty much hold below the 20 SMA, which is this red line here. The 20 SMA on the weekly has been a good sentiment indicator for bullish or bearish conditions across most pairs. So it's currently back above the 20 SMA for the first time since late 2020. We'll see if this holds. Really, the bigger thing is this W double bottom that is present on many BTC pairs currently. This looks like it has a date with basically a 2x, somewhere around 3,000 sats. 3,000 to 3,500 sats, I don't know, something like that. Basically, anywhere near this previous local high is certainly reasonable once you get a bottom like this, massive VPVR support. So this does look good for up. It's contingent on BTC stalling at 60K for as long as possible. That will always give alts a chance to do something when BTC is in a holding pattern at all-time highs. That's when alts tend to do the best because people are looking for rotation trades just continuously. They're rotating out of BTC and into alts. And then when alts move, they're rotating out of alts into BTC. And then the last thing I'll say about Ripple, if you look at the volume profile on Bitstamp specifically, it's always looked weird. It's looked weird since 2019, 2020. If this were any other exchange, I'd say this is just fake volume. But if anything, it looks like, and I think this was confirmed by some Slack messages or something, it looks like they were holding up the price at around 20 cents. It almost looks like they were buying and Jed McCaleb was selling. Jed McCaleb, which I haven't mentioned, well, he's always the founder, I guess, but CEO or something, whatever he was, has a bunch of Ripple, is going to continue to get a bunch of Ripple for the rest of his life, basically. So it looks like he was selling on Bitstamp and Ripple's buying, and they had this tug of war. Volume kind of went away in July and October, and then increased again towards the end of the year. And the weird part here is just the continuous algorithmic style buying and selling. You typically don't see, this is more typical where you get a variety of days of volume up and down. When you get the same volume every day, day in and day out, it's a bit weird and isn't natural. Just points toward algorithmic selling, buying and selling, really. So anyway, that's all I have on Ripple. Dislike, comment, share, subscribe. Let me know what you think about Ripple in the comments below. Get us to 10K subscribers, and happy trading.